Nothing dropped last week. Oh, hi there. Welcome to this week's episode of The Musical Show, where I react to music that's came out the past week and look at what's coming out, what came out today. And I also seem to re-review multiple albums every week that I just want to. That will continue this week. That will continue in next week's episode and probably the one after. Although there'll only be one the week after. It will more be albums that I've missed because I've missed a lot. And I finally decided I'm going to go back to them. Let's start off with 10,000 gecs by 100 gecs, which is a chaotic mess in the best way possible. You either love them or you don't. I love them. There you are. The instrumentals are incredibly entertaining to me and sometimes incredible in my eyes, especially in, say, Dumbest Girl Alive or Billy Knows Jamie. Among this, the album never takes itself too seriously, which just makes it so much better. Imagine all of those instrumentals and like genuine lyricism instead of just frog on the floor, where'd he come from? It just wouldn't work, would it? And it does this especially in Frog on the Floor, obviously, and Me. Even the instrumental is just so... It's just the most unserious song I've ever heard, probably, Frog on the Floor. The vocals are decent enough and work well with the instrumentals in their sort of goofiness, for lack of a better word. But the ones on Frog on the Floor did get a bit grating. However, my main gripes came from the lyrics either being too tongue-in-cheek for their own good, and that the song endings were just so samey. The instrumental calmed down and it just sounded like an interlude and then just ended. And like most of the songs, it started to get repetitive in my eyes. It doesn't have as much variation as it could have done, basically. It's still top 10 this year, probably. And it could have even been like top 5 or top 3 if 100 gecs just went insane and made like the messiest, weirdest album ever. But there you are. A phenomenal and insane album that may be absolute garbage, but like it's amazing. So shut up, 8.7 out of 10. Moving on to Curren$y and Harry Fraud's Vices. Honestly, I gave this an 8.8 first listen. I thought I was glazing, but no the fuck I wasn't. This is incredible. The beats were amazing, had a nice sound, although some were a bit basic. And the performances from Curren$y and features there were superb, aside from maybe 1 or 2 verses on the whole album, such as like maybe... Anyway, back to my point, because I completely lost track of where I was going. Performances of Curren$y and features were superb, apart from like 1 or 2 verses, and tracks such as Marble Columns were outstanding and some of the best all year. There are a couple of duds, but Neon Skyline is as close as we get to like an absolute dud, as it's pretty basic. But overall, it's a phenomenal short album with incredible production as always from Harry Fraud and solid rapping from Curren$y. 8.6 out of 10. Moving on to Boldy James, Prisoner of Circumstance. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this to grow on me, but, you know, it did. So, there you are. The beats are great, and Boldy, with his calm flows and voice, slid on the beats. For example, the beat on Trust Issues is genuinely incredible, but the way Boldy rapped worked perfectly, and he did that for the whole album. The only real issue is that it's nothing special for the most part, and the love he gave is a boring dud. Brilliant short album, with nice rapping and some great beats. They're great. Shout out Chan Hayes, who did the production on this thing. 7.7 out of 10. Moving on to Squid with O Monolith, which was so nearly so great, man. The vocals, as annoying as they were, fit the aggressive post-punk nature of the album so well. And tracks such as The Closer, if you had seen the ball swimming attempts, you would have stayed away, or the opener, Swing in a Dream, and nothing short of superb. But there are 6 other tracks on the album, and they did range from The Amazing Devil's Den to Siphon Song, and I am sorry, Siphon Song is terrible. It's awful. It might be bottom 10 this year, to be honest. That vocal effect is awful. It gives me vibes from that Avenged Sevenfold album with Ordinary. If you hear the new Avenged Sevenfold album, you know that the simile I'm trying to make is not very positive. After the Fast was just a dud as well. And there were other tracks such as like Green Light, which were pretty basic, but like just bangers. So overall, it's either too basic or too experimental. But it does hit the sweet spot on a fair few tracks. But, you know, to say that they were on duds and to say that this album is amazing as everyone else does, would just not be my opinion. I think this is pretty overrated, but still, it's great. 7.3 out of 10. Moving on to Conway the Machine's Won't You Do It, which, to be honest, is a bit underrated in a way. Beat-wise, it's either amazing or absolutely awful. Kanye's beat is insanely boring. Kanye, as in the song, Kanye West doesn't produce this thing. But Brucifix is honestly incredible. Beat-wise, it's so nice. Rapping-wise from Conway and obviously Westside Gunn. Spit, as always. He's just too good, isn't he? Lyrically, it is pretty subpar though. Aside from Won't He Do It, which was a beautiful track and one of the best from the album. Rapping-wise, aside from The Chosen, which was absolutely carried by Jay Skis and his energetic performance, he wasn't too bad and his signature delivery worked well. The main issues are that it's often boring and nothing special, and some songs go for far too long. In addition, and they got boring. In addition, the final track, Super Bowl, was trapped for no reason. It sounded cheap, it was empty and just unneeded, and Juicy J was awful. But I do admire the attempt. Overall, it is a great album. It isn't as bad as everyone says it is, but it does have some boring spots, awful bars, and unenjoyable features. Goose, by the way, another one who kind of sucked it. I just don't like him. I don't like his voice. He's just not very good. Great album, though. That, I'd say, is a bit underrated. 7 out of 10. Moving on to Brian Eno and Fred again, Secret Life. And as much as I do have a soft spot and a lot of love for the album, it's just simply not amazing. I just can't say it is, like I did previous. The fragmented sound, as nice as it can be in some sections, it just doesn't always work. And this album is so forgettable that you forget you're even listening to it, like, while you're listening to it. And overall, it was just a bit boring in some places. As relaxing and beautiful as, say, I Saw You is, Come On got old after the first 30 seconds, and it was 5 minutes long. Among this, there are other duds such as Trying, which was awful mess. And overall, as much as I have a soft spot for the album, I admire Fred again. His vocals I enjoyed, but I don't think every experiment production-wise worked, and I think he was involved with some of the dub ones, but like I admire the attempt. But yeah, as much as I have a soft spot for the album, it can be boring, and its fragmented sounds, as much as it's amazing on some tracks, can leave a lot to be desired. 6.5 out of 10. Moving on to Jay Worthy and Rock Marciano with Nothing Bigger Than the Program. The concept of the album, I get, but it's just not very well executed. And the beats were not amazing, were pretty repetitive and pretty boring. Jay doesn't add much, and the aggressiveness of his lyricism doesn't really fit with like the sort of relaxing, calm instrumentals from Rock Marciano, and it ends up sticking out like a sore thumb sometimes, especially with some of the bars before, just moving to whatever he's saying about selling drugs. The features didn't add much at all either. And yeah, as much as some tracks, such as Wake Up, exist and are amazing, there's a lot of mids, such as The Huddle, and overall, as an average, it's just a mid album. 5.4 out of 10. I just don't enjoy it that much. Moving on to So Fago, at the bottom of the re-listens with Go Plus, which still really not that bad. The beats are mostly decent enough, and Fago doesn't have horrific performances for the most part. It's only really RC where his performance is awful. However, the highlights such as Havoc, while great, aren't high in comparison to how low the lows are, such as Beautiful Rockstar, which was awful. But there weren't that many lows, so there's that. And the sound isn't that special. So overall, it's listenable, but it's nothing special. It's just okay. It's okay. It's not bad. 5 out of 10. It's alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 6 albums to review, so let's review them. Starting off with who are at the bottom. The front bottoms with You Are Who You Hang Out With. The front bottoms knew what their appeal was and did what with it? Completely ignore it and make some of the worst pop rock of the decade so far. The instrumentals are drab and boring. The vocals range from just about tolerable, I mean, not like the vocals are ever any good on a front bottoms album, to horrendous with some awful autotune placed on it. Like, what the fuck was the point of the autotune? It was awful. It was terrible. And it creates such a barely tolerable experience. And aside from tracks such as Paris and Emotionals, it's just not... as much as it is hard to tolerate, it's not one of the worst this year, do you get me? Fake Gold wasn't too bad, for example, but this was awful. It was just terrible, it was unlistenable, the vocals were terrible, 2 out of 10. No, it sucks. It sucks. Moving on to Miles Kane with One Man Band, and when I listened to it, I figured out that his voice is absolutely shit. The production and instrumentals were also insanely boring, which didn't really help his case either. And yeah, he's just not very good. Tracks such as Heartbreak, The New Sensation, also showcase unbearable and cringy lyricism, and overall this album just feels like a complete mockery of fucking 2010s indie. And aside from maybe tracks such as The Wonder, which I guess were tolerable enough, this has nothing redeemable about it. It's boring and plain awful indie. It sucks. 2.3 out of 10. Anyway, moving on to Yo Gotti and DJ Drama with I Showed You So, and yet again, a trap Gangsta Grillz tape turns out mids. The production is insanely safe and boring, but insanely not bad. And Yo Gotti does nothing unique whatsoever that makes him have his own sound, but doesn't do much bad either. From this, I can name around 20 rappers who sound exactly like him if I actually tried when it comes to the sound. And aside from in the closer I'm Out, where his voice... Oh my god. From this, I can name around 20 rappers who have pretty much the exact same sound as him, aside from when he plays with his voice in I'm Out. And I'm Out was actually quite a good song. It had a great beat. Easily the best song in the... Oh my god. Easily the best song of the album, as... The beat is just too goddamn good, as I just said. It's amazing. Aside from the starter, it doesn't sound complete at all. That aside, literally nothing to talk about, as the album is just insanely passable. It's just fine in every department. The beats aren't bad, the rapping isn't bad, the ad-libs from DJ Drama are entertaining, and it's just fine, apart from maybe the one, and one or two others, which are just trash bores. Mid-album overall, that's just insanely fine. Apart from one or two great songs and 2 absolute stinkers, it's just fine, 5 out of 10. I've never listened to such an okay album in my life. Moving on to BLB Kosher with Bars Mitzvah, which is an incredibly eclectic album that has some basic, a pretty average Brooklyn rap, but also has some weird indie shit and just the normal traditional trap. BLP often attempts to be funny on the album, like he's fucking Babytron, with little success as he's just not that funny. Tracks such as Cheese Touch play on a dead meme pretty badly, while also being insanely basic to a point of it being impressive. There are also some traditional trap bangers, which usually do work, such as Miami Rainbows. In general, when the instrumentals and beats weren't boring, they were pretty damn good. They were just boring a little too much. But the last few tracks are more indie and show BLP actually kind of being able to sing low-key. He's not that bad. And, I just don't know whether I love him or hate him, to be honest. Open Your Mind was pretty damn good, though. Especially vocally. He can actually semi-sing. I was expecting him to sound like flipping... who can't sing? I was expecting him to sound like insert someone who can't sing here. I can't think of anyone. It's a strange album that's sometimes fun in its awfulness, and it propels it to not being awful at all. It's kind of a accidental sort of okay album. It should have been awful, but it just wasn't. It was kind of enjoyable and pretty fun. 5.8 out of 10. It could have been a 1. That's all I'm going to say. It was... the fun factor took her from a 1 to about 5. There you go. Moving on to Current Joys with Love and Pop. Love? Fuck off. Don't give me that southern shit. Current Joys with Love and Pop. A strange album with songs that you'd expect, such as My Shadow Life from the band, and also some other great songs, such as Motion Sickness. But there is Dr. Satan, which, what the fuck, it's awful, and a Lil Yachty feature on Gatsby. Where did that come from? It wasn't bad, though. And it also ends with an 8-minute closer called You Are The Reason, which didn't need to be 8 minutes long at all. Pretty eclectic album, to be honest. Amongst this, it has some corny and straight-up awful lyricism, especially on tracks such as Baby Put on Deftones. Any track with a corny song title is corny, that's just how it works. Interesting album that has some highlights, but, some experiments just don't stick the landing. 6.5 out of 10. But at the top, pretty easily, is Humanity's Last Breath with Ashen, which is a great album that has some incredibly heavily and quite frankly amazing production in some areas. The growling is great and this does show a lot of quality. However, the structure of the songs a lot of the time are non-existent, and it is almost grating with how the drums sound, and overall, the aggressive sound, it just sounds too much of a mess. It's too much. There is a good way to do it, but a lot of the time it sounded annoying to listen to in some spots. However, Passage is a fantastic song, and Bloodspilled, among one or two others, have some great breakdowns. There's a lot about the album that I like, but there's also a fair bit that I don't. Nonetheless, though, impressive album, and it's pretty damn great. 7.4 out of 10. Does this week look better than last week? Yes, actually. Does it look great, though? Not really. Let's start off the albums that are coming out this week with Trippie Redd with A Love Letter to You 5, which I guess is a mixtape, but whatever. It features Corbin, Sky Morales, Lil Wayne, Roddy Ricch, The Kid Laroi, Tommy Lee Sparta, Sky Morales, and Bryson Tiller. 19 songs, 51 minutes long. I have already listened to it, but what I will say is that I did do a prediction of the album score before I listened to it, and that prediction was a 6. I'm not going to tell you if it's right or not, because, you know, that just would not make sense. Sorry. Right, what was I gonna say? Give me 2 seconds. Alright. So, let's move on to No Name with Sundial, which will feature Jametta Rose, Voices of Creation, Jay Electronica, Erin Allen Kane, Ione, Silk Money, Billy Woods, Stout, Common, and Ione. Some fire features there. 11 songs, 31 minutes long. I'm predicting a 7. Moving on to Fredo with Unfinished Business, featuring Tiggs the Author and Eric 4, or Eric IV. 15 songs, 52 minutes long. Not looking forward to it at all. 2. Moving on to Carol G with Mañana Será Bonito, Bichota Season, which I guess is just a sequel to Mañana Será Bonito, maybe this year, which I'm not going to listen to because I know I'm going to say it's a 3 or a 4, because I've heard enough to know that. If this one will feature Beso Pluma, Chris MJ, Brian Castro, Kali Uchis, Dave V, and Young Miko, as well as Tiesto. 10 songs, 30 minutes long. I'm going to predict a 6. Moving on to Jungle with Volcano, featuring Eric the Architect, Channel Trez, Root Maneuver, Mood Talk, and Baz. 14 songs, 44 minutes long. 5. And finally, actually no, not finally, Public Image Limited, the Sex Pistol guys, other bands that tried to go in Eurovision this year, they released their new album called End of the World. 13 songs, 50 minutes long. 7. And finally, we've got The Hives with The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons. 12 songs, 31 minutes long. Really looking forward to this one. 8. Well, there you are. I've done it. I'm finished with this episode. What are you looking forward to? Is there anything you're looking forward to? Because I'm looking forward to Public Image Limited, The Hives and No Name from this week. Can't wait to listen to them. I'm going to start off pretty damn soon. Thank you for watching. See you next week. Jesus Christ. Quick update on the Carol G shit. I'm actually not going to listen to it because a lot of it is just remixes and it's just not worth the time. I'm just going to listen to the actual original version of the album and just do it as an album I missed. That works, doesn't it? See ya. you.